Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back, grade 8 students. Let's continue circulatory system. Lesson 6. What are the components of blood and their functions? First, you have to know the components of the blood and each component, the function of each component. The percent of blood in our body is 8% of our body. About 4 to 6 liters in average. In average, we have 4 to 6 liters. The composition of blood is 45% of the blood is cells and 55% of the blood is plasma. Composed of plasma and blood cells. So blood is containing plasma and blood cells. Types of cells, we have 3 different types of cells: red blood cell, white blood cell, and platelets. All those 3 components are cells. Plasma has a straw colored. 90% of plasma is water. 10% of plasma is dissolved gas, salts, nutrients, enzymes, hormones, wastes, and proteins. So blood is containing of or composed of cells and plasma. Plasma protein is responsible for many things like transport substance, hormones, vitamins, and responsible for blood's ability to clot. Red blood cells is responsible for transporting oxygen, get color from hemoglobin, and it has disc shaped. It's also made in red bone marrow. Circulate for 120 days. So the main function for red blood cell is transport oxygen. The main function for red blood cell is to transport oxygen, and it has disc shape to increase the surface area of the blood cell so it can carry more oxygen. White blood cell is a guard, acts like a guard against what? Against infection, and it is responsible for fight parasites and attack bacteria. Number of white blood cells increases when body is fighting a pathogen. Lymphocytes produce antibodies which fight pathogen and remember them. So as general, white blood cell is responsible for fight against infection, fight parasites or bacteria or pathogens. So it acts like a guard. Platelets aid the body in clotting. Its small fragments stick to edges of broken blood cells and secrete clotting factor to help form clot. When our body or your skin is injured, the platelets aid the body to clot, and it is stick to edges of broken blood cells. So it is very important for clotting. So in general, we have 3 cells, 3 different types of cells. Red blood cells is responsible for transporting oxygen. White blood cells is responsible for fighting against infection or protect us from pathogens. The third type of cell is platelets, which is responsible for help body in clotting. So as you can see, blood has 3 main functions: transport, protection, clotting, and also temperature regulation. What exactly does blood transport? It transports oxygen, carbon dioxide, urea, hormones, digested food, everything in our body. He can transport from a part to another part of the body. White blood cells is responsible for fighting or defense against infections. Like in general function. You don't have to memorize each of these phagocytes or lymphocytes, or you don't have to memorize it. Just you have to know that the blood function or the white blood cells is responsible for defense or fight against infection. Last, clotting, which we have said that the platelets help or aid in the body in clotting. This is what we meant about clotting, because the cells come together and trying to fix the injured skin. This is clotting, activated platelet clot fibrin. Okay. Hope you understood blood well. You have only to know the definition or the composition of the blood and the function of each part. Thank you. Goodbye.